and we'll go ahead and jump in. So welcome to Flatiron School's info session. This really will be an opportunity for y'all to get to know us a little bit better, all of our program offerings, tuition options, all that great stuff. I'll go ahead by starting with just an introduction of myself. My name is Ash Navarro. I am the admissions lead specifically for our product design program. A little bit about me. I've been at Flatiron School now for just about 3 years. It'll actually be 3 years in June. I'm based out of the New York City area. So if at any point I'm talking 1,000 miles a minute, let me know. I'm more than happy to slow down. And I'm an avid foodie. If any of y'all are foodies, we can definitely talk about it. I'm also a travel enthusiast. I am a plant mom. If you look behind me, there are many of my children hanging out there. And I am also a new cat mom, even though I never considered myself a cat person. Yeah, that's a little bit about me. I was gonna try to think of a fun fact on the spot, but I don't think I can. Oh, I guess fun fact, my cat was actually a stray and she walked up to my partner and I on the street the day after Christmas. And she has been with us ever since, even though the first night she was with us, she ran away. But yeah, we have kept her ever since, and here we are a few months later. But now we'll go ahead and dive into a little bit about what you can expect to learn about today. Obviously, welcome to you all. You'll learn a little bit about Flatiron School, the history behind us. I'll also dive into a pretty comprehensive program overview that'll cover all 4 of the programs that we do offer here. We'll go into the admissions process and all the intricacies of that. We'll dive into career services, our job outcomes report, and obviously I will save some time at the end for a Q&A session. But if you do think of anything during these slides, please feel free to jump in and I'm more than happy to answer questions on the spot. Oh, you adopted a dog after Christmas too? Amazing. Well, I hope you're loving your dog and they're adjusting to the new home. But this is our mission statement here at Flatiron School. Our mission statement obviously is to enable the pursuit of a better life through education. And our goal really is to set you up for a successful future in your new career path. We do consider our programs career-changing courses, and we want to make sure that your transition into tech and into the industry overall is as smooth as possible. Now, we'll dive into what that looks like throughout the rest of the presentation. So like I said, we'll dive into all of those intricacies, and I will be keeping my eye on the chat box just in case anybody thinks of questions. Now, this is a little bit about our history. So Flatiron School was actually founded in 2012 by Adam Enbar and Avi Flombaum. Now, Adam was sort of like the business of the operations, and he also had a passion for education. And Avi was also very passionate about teaching folks how to code. He would actually do it at coffee shops. And so they decided to come together as one and decided to go ahead and deliver the initial software engineering curriculum that we were offering. Now, fast forward 10 years, we've now expanded to 4 different disciplines, including software engineering, but now we've also added on our data science program, product design, and cybersecurity engineering. And we do offer all of those at various paces, and both have virtual as well as the option of in-person cohorts, as well as campus locations all across the US. And then lastly, our graduates are able to launch careers in the tech industry with impressive starting salaries, and in most cases have a full career transition in less than a year. And then this slide, I get super excited about because this is actually a list of a lot of the places, or some of the places, I should say, our graduates are employed by. We have a wide range of employers that our graduates are hired on with. So obviously in this slide, you see everything from banks to insurance companies, and some pretty prestigious company names as well. I think it also just shows how much we now depend on technology for just standard day-to-day business, and that most of these companies are now operating websites or applications, and obviously rely very heavily on software engineers to make that happen. Now, this is just a quick sort of side-by-side comparison of our learning paces. So we currently offer 2 paces, and there still is some variety in one of them. So I'll quickly dive into that. We offer our program in a full-time, which is essentially exactly what it sounds like. You're learning on a fixed full-time schedule, and it essentially simulated what we offered in person, which we now are offering as a full-time offering. So with this one, you'll be able to fast track your schedule, work with a ton of accountability. So if you are the type of person that flourishes with having deadlines, this would be the best pace for you. You'll be able to attend live lectures, work on projects in both an individual setting as well as in group settings with the other students in your cohort. It is 15 weeks long, and it would be a Monday through Friday 9-hour day. Now, like I mentioned, this is great for students who do a lot better with structure, but also students that want to have that built-in community already. You're working with a cohort. You are, working very closely with your instructor. If you are taking this in one of our campuses, so in an in-person model, you'll be able to quite literally pick up your laptop and walk over to your instructor should you have any questions. So it offers the most accountability and a high level of support. Now, on the other hand, we have our part-time learning, and this is our more flexible model. So this is great for folks that might have very busy schedules. You're a caretaker or have a full-time job, or have responsibilities outside of just this program. You'll be able to go ahead and learn on your own schedule over the pace of 40 weeks. Now with this, you're able to really set your schedule to work for you and work around your busy life, but you would still have the support of an instructor throughout your entire journey. So you'll set your own schedule, you'll connect with your instructor for one-on-ones, typically once a week or once bi-weekly, depending on what works best for you. And in order to go ahead and complete the program in those 40 weeks, you would need to dedicate anywhere from around 20 to 25 hours of work per week. And then with both, obviously there is a remote part to it. So you can choose to learn remote full-time or part-time, or you can choose to learn full-time in person. Part-time does not exist in person, but if you live near one of our campuses and want to jump into, maybe a study session, or you want a quiet place away from home where you can study, we do have some support system in place where you can go ahead and reach out to our community team, and you can rent out a desk at one of our campuses. Obviously, it does vary campus to campus, so definitely have that conversation with your admissions rep and they'll be able to provide a little bit more detail about that. Now we'll go ahead and jump into our programs. We'll start with our first program, which is the software engineering. Actually, before we jump into that, I did see that somebody asked a question. For the part-time option, do you still have communication with classmates? Do you work on group projects? The short answer for that is yes. So for most of the programs, or for all of the programs, I should say, your instructor will also be working very closely with other flex or part-time students, and they'll be able to facilitate things like group study sessions, office hours. For the software engineering, if you're interested in pair programming, your instructor can help facilitate that. For our product design program, if you're interested in group study sessions, your instructor can facilitate that. So the short answer is yes, but the extent of that will depend on your availability. So you can have as little or as much engagement as you would like in those programs, and it'll depend on the actual program itself. And then, yeah, transitioning to our program overview, I'll start with the software engineering. One of our most popular programs is a software engineering. And obviously, this is the design, development, maintenance, testing, and evaluation of websites and software. Now, with our software engineering program, it does teach students full stack. But we do specifically focus on web development. So you'll learn how to create both web pages and web applications from scratch. And then our software engineer grads do go on to land a host of different jobs, but the most common job title is software engineer as well as software developer. And this is some of what you'll learn. So like I said, it is a full stack program, which essentially means you'll learn both front end and back end web dev. We cover a lot. So you'll dive into HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Ruby, SQL, and XML, to name a few. We also do know the importance of data structures within the software engineering realm. So you also will dive into data structures, algorithms, and big O notation. In terms of minimum hardware requirements, computer recommended for each program, the only program that we have right now that has a strict computer requirement is our product design program. For that one, it is Mac specific because of some of the software that you'll be using, the design tools. For all of our other programs, you can really use whichever brand of computer you'd like, whatever operating system. Rule of thumb is just that it is no older than 5 years old, is running on the latest operating system, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 8 gigabytes of free hard drive space, 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes of free hard drive space, and at least 2 gigahertz of processing speed. Yeah, so on our website, you can actually find our campuses are sort of structured on there. And then each location will have, if it's not open just yet, it'll let you know when we're expecting to reopen it. But in terms of the campuses that are open for students to visit, you'll definitely want to connect with your admissions representative about that. Now, for software engineering, for all of our programs, I should say, you will be building out a portfolio. Now, this is just one example of a capstone project that someone created. Now, this was built by one of our virtual students in Texas. She built an app called Money Moon, which is super impressive. It's a personal finance app for two. Money Moon gives couples an overview of their joint financial health, spending habits, trends, without actually having to combine their bank accounts. Now, the back end of this was built with Ruby on Rails, front end with JavaScript, using React and Redux, and that is what created this nice and lightweight interface. And then the student went the extra mile by going ahead and using the Plaid API to authenticate user credentials with banks and scrape account and transaction data. And that's actually the same API that Robinhood uses. So you can actually find this project and a lot of other ones on our YouTube. So I would definitely recommend taking a peek at that if you want to get excited and think about all of the projects that you can create in the program. So definitely keep an eye out for that and make sure to visit us on YouTube. Now we'll move on to our data science program. Now, our data science program is a field that does use scientific methods, processes, algorithms, and systems to actually extract knowledge and insights from structured and unstructured data. Now, with data science, I like to tell students that there is also a business acumen that needs to be there, so to speak, just because data scientists do often communicate with business stakeholders. And so there is always that presentation component. Data science is great for folks that are very into math and into business and also into predicting and analyzing trends. Now, our data science grads tend to find quite many different job titles, I should say, but most often the titles tend to revolve around data scientist or data analyst. And this is a lot of what you'll be learning within there. So our program does dive into code, so you'll learn Python programming. Obviously, for those of you that are very excited about math, it also will dive into statistics, hypothesis testing. It'll also go over machine learning, predictive analysis, linear regression. And obviously, you'll learn how to both extract data as well as clean it to be able to come up with all of those business insights. If you are into AI, this is also a really good place for you to get started, just because it also goes into more advanced trends. So deep learning, as well as natural language processing. And here is also another very exciting project. So with this project, also an example of a portfolio project from one of our data science students, she actually used the parameters of the Bechdel test to examine how women are represented in film and presented the data-driven insights for end users with a dashboard, which y'all can see right here, that it actually went ahead and allowed users to explore the data that most interests them. So in here, you can see all of the tests that she ran, whether or not the films had writers that were female, producers that were female, and where they ended up giving them a score on that range. Now, she created dashboards from data, and that's actually super common practice that sorts your data into a quick visual, whether it be a graph or a chart, and it actively allows you to measure and assess data quickly and easily to perform in a more productive fashion. And now we'll dive into our cybersecurity program. So with our cybersecurity program, it is essentially the protection of computer systems from theft or damage to hardware, software, or data. Basically, this means that it protects systems from cyber attacks so people can operate safely. I feel like this is super important, especially right now in the day and age that we're living in. We're just coming out of a global pandemic, and a lot of the things that we were normally doing in person, we were doing online, and that can actively increase the threats that are out there. And so we've actually partnered with Secure Set Academy to create our cyber engineering courses, and we offer it currently in a flex pace and have live start dates resuming in May. And then in terms of roles that our students end up in, they end up in jobs such as security engineers, security analysts, and security consultants. And this is some of what you'll learn. Now, our cybersecurity curriculum is rigorous. It is roughly 600 hours worth of curriculum, learning advanced cybersecurity tools such as Python. You'll also go into cryptography, Wireshark, Linux, Metasploit, and you learn how to use them to defend against cyber criminals. Now, the program is broken down into 8 foundational courses. that are a deep dive on concepts related to networks and systems, cryptography, as I mentioned, application security, and pen testing, which is super exciting. Now, this program also spends 50% of its time in cyber range lab environments. So you'll get a lot of hands-on practical application with all of the things that you're learning. And now this is, I feel like what sets our program apart, or specifically our cybersecurity program apart from a lot of the others that are out there, is that you'll actually have a portfolio or a body of work that you can show potential future employers. So this is an example of what you'll be doing. After completing our course, you'll be able to go ahead and both actively monitor vulnerabilities, threats, and take action on them in an enterprise environment. Now, this capstone project actually simulates a real-world breach scenario where you present your solution to a panel, and you'll utilize all the deliverables from this for your job search with your career coach. Now, this also gives you the opportunity to do some testing with your classmates. So you'll be able to, one person will serve as the hacker, and the other person will try to go ahead and impede that and keep your system safe. And then lastly, we have our product design program. Product design is our newest offering. It is what makes me the most excited. This is sort of like my realm here. But our product design program, I like to tell students, is great for someone that's looking for something that will give them that foot in the door in the tech industry, but isn't as tech forward as a data scientist, software engineer, cybersecurity engineer. This program really does allow you to still be creative while obviously thinking of the users that are using the prototypes that you're creating. For the sake of the program, you'll create prototypes for websites, web applications, and also mobile applications. So it is a very exciting time. Now our program dives into both UX and UI. So you'll learn about design, research, and data to help solve problems for those users' experience. And then this is a little bit about what you'll learn. It's actually broken down into the phases of the program. So the first phase will dive into UX, that will then transition into UI. That is followed by 2 studio phases where you'll really work on getting hands-on implementation of everything that you're learning. You'll actually work on quite a few different projects in the program. There are about 6 small-scale projects and 3 large-scale projects. And then the final phase is the portfolio phase, where you'll work on creating and also launching an online portfolio. And now there is a project example. Now, what's really cool about our product design program is that all of the projects that you'll be working on will be based off of existing companies, and you'll learn how to make mock changes to those existing designs. So this specific project uses Heirloom, which is a company that actually installs hydroponic technologies for indoor and outdoor use. It automates many of those sort of like tedious tasks involved with growing your own food. And so students are actually able to design the screens for controlling and setting up sensors and components in the system. So thinking very consciously of where charts need to be in order for them to be efficiently read and understood by the users that are going ahead and using this specific application, where this specific component would look better, whether the pictures up top would be the best decision and sort of like the most captivating for the users. And so, yeah, this is my jam, and this is what excites me about our school. And now I'll talk a little bit about the team. I know there are 2 questions hanging out in the Q&A. I will most definitely get to those. We have slides for that, which is the only reason why I haven't answered just yet. But in terms of our team, we do have quite a few different phases of the journey that you'll be going through. Obviously, the first stop is the number one, admissions representative. After that, when you get started with us, you'll be working very closely with your lead instructor. Technical coaches, we have technical coaches available for basically all of our programs, and your technical coaches, or I should say the technical coaches, will be there to provide additional assistance. And lastly, your career coach. And your career coach will really be there to support your job search. You'll actually have a designated career coach to support you throughout your entire job search. And they'll help with everything from rebranding your resume to overcoming imposter syndrome, which is huge, negotiating salary, and obviously everything in between. And I'll chat a little bit more about that in a few slides. But we'll go ahead and dive into the admissions process and what that looks like. Obviously, number one, you want to make sure you write an application. My rule of thumb, the application really is our first impression of you, and it is how we'll learn more about you and what sort of drew you to our school and to our programs. So I recommend, you make sure you type anywhere from 2 to 3 paragraphs, just enough so that we know who you are, and sort of like what brought you here. After that is the admissions interview. We do have an admissions assessment that you'll also be completing. And that assessment is a 15-minute sort of like general logic quiz. You'll receive an admissions decision after that, deposit, pre-work, and obviously finalizing all of your enrollment tasks. So that includes financial clearance, that involves signing off on your enrollment agreement, acknowledging your course catalog, and really making sure you're reading through all of those documents. And then after that, you have day one and you're ready to get started. We'll start with number one, which is, like I mentioned, the application. Or actually, before going ahead and getting started on the application, you definitely want to make sure to, if you're still in a spot where you're not quite sure which of our programs speaks the most to you, definitely do some research. Your admissions representative will also be there to help out, but you want to make sure that you suss out the options. And we also do have some intro courses that are free that you can go ahead and dive into that'll give you a really good idea of which of the programs you like, especially when you're getting hands-on practice with them. And then once you have a clear idea of that, then you want to go ahead and submit an application. Like I said, I usually recommend students to submit complete paragraphs. Our application has 2 questions. One, or not necessarily question, but the first thing is to tell us about your background. And the second is to tell us about your technical experience. Now, don't get hung up on the technical experience part. We are open to going ahead and allowing students from all walks of life to take part in our programs. Maybe you're working on a computer science degree or have been self-teaching for years, but you want to make sure to tell us any sort of like relevant experience within there. Or maybe you're brand new, but you love puzzles and problem solving, and any sort of additional soft skills that really speak to who you are and why you're interested in this journey are also highly encouraged to go ahead and be added. For product design, yes, you will have one-on-one mentoring. Your mentor will be your instructor. Obviously, depending on the pace you're moving at, like I said, you'll either connect with your instructor for a Zoom one-on-one, either once a week or once bi-weekly, and that stands with all of the programs. Another question. So right now our Deloitte program is at capacity. You can find more information on our website, and also be added to our wait list to get notified when we have that open for application again. It's just flatironschool.com/Deloitte. When should you apply? So here are all the things. So you want to apply when you're ready for a career change, or have enough time to really get started with this program that you can commit to the program. The one thing that I do like to tell a lot of students about is that regardless of the pace that you study in, it is a time commitment. So you want to make sure that the time fits in with your schedule. So you want to consider all the things that you have going on in your life, and think realistically about it and the time commitment that comes along with it. A 60-hour week course might sound super doable, but you have to think about all the other things you have going on. Do you have, is your calendar packed? Are you going on a vacation? Do you have kids or pets that you need to walk throughout the day? Those are definitely all things you want to think about, but also things that we can talk about during the admissions process to really help you understand which pace would suit you the best. All right, so now that you've submitted an application, the next step is to complete an admissions interview. Someone on our team will actively go ahead and reach out as soon as we've received your interview. So like myself, but they'll go ahead and help you set up that interview. It is non-technical. So I like to tell students it most likely will not be as anxiety inducing as interviews usually are for a lot of folks. I at least like to keep things very light, but it will be a great way for us to get to know you a little bit better and ultimately for you to get to know us. It is roughly 20 minutes worth of a conversation over Zoom, or on the phone if that's what you prefer. But like I said, it'll be an opportunity for both of us to get to know one another. And also a great time for you to have any and all of the questions that you might still have answered. And after that, you'll want to make sure that you complete our admissions assessment. Like I said earlier, the admissions assessment is a general logic quiz, and it essentially just assesses your ability to think critically. You'll have 15 minutes to complete around 50 questions. I know 50 questions does sound like a lot, but you do not have to worry about answering all 50 of those. The test concepts revolve around things like pattern recognition, math, and vocabulary. The assessment is the same for all of our programs. And best of all, you don't need to prep. You can actually jump right in. But if you are like me and really enjoy to prep, these are some sample questions that you'll likely see on that assessment, or very similar questions that you'll see on that assessment. If you want to take a step further and practice even more, we do have a blog post called How to Pass Flatiron School's New Admissions Assessment. It's available on our website in the blogs category, or the blog hyperlink, sorry. And you'll be able to find even more example questions there, and also ways just to sort of beat some of the anxiety that comes along with test prep. And then after this, you'll receive your admissions decision from us. We have a pretty quick turnaround, to be quite honest. So you'll hear back from us typically within 1 to 3 business days of that initial conversation. Also, I like to joke, I always think of questions as soon as I'm off the phone with someone. So if you happen to be like that and you think of questions while you're waiting for your decision, please do not hesitate to reach out to your admissions representative. We are all more than happy to help out. So please shoot us any questions that you might have during this in-between time. But once you've gone ahead and been admitted to our program, this is sort of the most important thing for a lot of folks that are actively researching other boot camps. There are other boot camps that have technical gates before you get admitted. And for Flatiron School, this is sort of our technical gate, the pre-work. So the pre-work is mandatory for you to complete before day 1. It is technical, and it's really designed to get you prepped and ready for day 1 of class. So it's there to really give you a good foundation, but also increase your comfortability with a lot of the things and themes that you'll be seeing in the actual program that you'll be participating in. Now, each program, the pre-work does vary a little bit, or the amount of hours varies a little bit. So you want to make sure to give yourself enough time to complete the pre-work. And just so that you're aware, all of our pre-work is due a week before whatever start date you have in mind. So once you are admitted, also give yourself some time to really think about how much time you need to navigate through the pre-work. Again, if you have anything going on in life, and choose a start date accordingly. But yeah, that's the pre-work. For all of our programs, you'll also have sort of like two things that you can look forward to. Number one, we're super huge on community over here, and you'll actually start working with the Flatiron School sort of like community. Once you get access to this pre-work, you'll be added to a pre-work support channel, and that's there for peer-to-peer support. So it's a really great way for you to connect with other students that are actively working through the pre-work, and sort of build out a network. If you want to go ahead and conduct a study group, you're more than welcome to. We do have some office hours that take place for our pre-work, and you also will have access to technical coaches for the pre-work, for all of our programs except product design right this very moment, but that is also coming down the funnel. And then I know there was a question about cost. All of our programs are $16,900, regardless of the pace or modality you're interested in studying in. And we do have an initial $500 deposit for all of those options. Now I'm going to give you a sort of quick rundown of what we offer. The first is payment upfront. So once you go ahead and place that initial $500 deposit, then you'll go ahead and pay your remaining balance of $16,400 before day one. The second is an installment plan, and that actively breaks down your remaining balance of $16,400 into 12 even payments over the course of a year. And the great thing about that one is that there is actually no interest attached to it. And then our last option is a loan. We actually work with two loan partners at the moment. One is called Ascent and the other is called Climb Credit. This is great for folks that are looking for a little bit more flexibility with those payments. Both of our loan providers offer interest-only payment periods, and Ascent offers an option to defer your loan until 3 months after you complete the program. And for both of them, they don't have early payment penalty fees, so you can pay them off before the 36-month term. And then for folks that might need additional assistance, we do offer quite a few different scholarship opportunities. So we offer 3 partial scholarships at the moment. The Access Scholarship, which really is aimed to help those in underrepresented communities, or those in financial need. You know, people of color, students that are part of the LGBTQ community, students with disabilities, or students with a veteran status, can actively go ahead and apply for that scholarship. We also have a Women Take Tech scholarship that is for any student that identifies as female, and that was created really to help bridge the disparity between men and women in tech. And then lastly, we have our Merit Scholarship, and that one is for all of the superstar students that we have during the admissions process. With all of our scholarships, there's roughly, or I should say, you can roughly be awarded anywhere from around $1,000 to $3,000. They'll go ahead and waive your initial $500 deposit, and then you'll go ahead and have the rest of it applied to your remaining balance. Yes, the $500 does go towards the tuition. So once you do go ahead and place that, your tuition will be reduced to $16,400. And then in terms of the flex option, can you pick the pace of the program? Yes, so you'll have 40 weeks, but you can go ahead and sort of set those weeks up however you feel the most comfortable. But just so you know, rule of thumb, for the 40-week program, you should really be dedicating anywhere from 20 to 25 hours of work per week to it. But you can most definitely work faster than that if you would like. Can you get more than one scholarship? No. So because we want to go ahead and award as many scholarships as we can to our very diverse student population, students can only be awarded one. But if you'd like to apply to multiple scholarships, you're more than welcome to. And then we'll move on to what happens once you're done with the program. So once you're done with the program, you'll start working with a career coach. Now that person will be dedicated to you one-on-one. I like to tell students all the time, you know, aside from our instructors and our admissions team, our career coaches are probably the hardest working team here. Down below, you'll see a roadmap of what you can go ahead and expect to go through. You'll obviously meet your coach. Like I mentioned earlier, they'll help with rebranding your resume. They'll also help with conducting mock interviews with you, both technical and HR, so you feel comfortable with all of those processes and the intricacies tied into those. They'll also help you with job optimization. So I tell students all the time, if there are specific industries you want to break into, definitely chat with your career coach about that, and they can help you narrow down your search to include opportunities within that industry. And obviously, this is also where our employer partnerships team comes into play. They work very closely with our career coaches. And depending on what your goals and aspirations are, if we have a company that we're currently working with that aligns with that, then somebody on our employer partnerships team will reach out to you and serve as a bridge between you and that company. And then this last slide is just a little bit about what we're extremely proud of over here, which is our job outcomes. This is a little bit about our 2020 job outcomes report. We actually release one every year, but this was based on a sample set of, I want to say 2,000-ish students, but we currently have an 86% employment rate, and the average starting salary for folks is around 74,000, so a little shy of 75,000. Now, this is also where your career coach comes in super heavily. You'll typically connect with your career coach twice a week throughout your entire job search until your first day at your first job. So they will absolutely help with sort of the intricacies to get you into this job outcomes report. Something that I'm very, very proud of is our female grads actually have a 90% employment rate, and their average starting salary is around $3,000 more than the male counterparts, which I find extremely exciting. So the placement rate for online is available in the job outcomes report. You're actually going to receive an email that'll go ahead and link you to that full report. Full disclosure or disclaimer, I should say, I like to joke and say it's pretty much like a short novel. It's around 72 pages total, if I'm not mistaken, but it has all the information in there. It is super meaty. It breaks down the data by program, also by modality, and it also breaks down the education levels of the students. So definitely take a peek at that if you want any additional information, or if you hop on our website, in the resources drop-down menu, you'll be able to see job reports there. And the actual landing page will give you a really good breakdown of all of the highlights that are in there if you don't want to go through the whole thing. So starting salary seems a little low. Yes, 100% very aware of that. So just so you know, this is an average of all of our US students. So we do have students that take the program in very rural parts of Idaho and Wyoming that participate in the program. And that is actually what causes the the slight disparity that pops up in our report. So it just takes into account all of the folks that are in our more remote places that are taking our program online. And that was all the slides. I just wanted to obviously give y'all the time to ask me any questions you might have. I know I've been talking your ear off this whole time. So was there anything that I did cover that y'all are still curious about, or anything I have not covered just yet that you have a question about? The chat box is open, the Q&A box is open, whichever of the two you prefer. Oh, you're welcome. Also, since there aren't that many of you in here, if y'all have any questions, you can reach me at ashley.navarro@flatironschool.com. Do you have the next start date for cybersecurity? Our next flex start date is April 25th. The live will not resume until May 16th. Is there a way to find data on New York City graduate salaries for those who found jobs in New York City? If I'm not mistaken, the job outcomes report does specifically break down average salaries by our campuses. And so the New York City campus will have a little column of its own where you can take a peek at those salaries. What are the educational prereqs? So because our program is open to career changers, we don't necessarily have any hard recs, prereqs, I should say. For some of the programs, I definitely highly encourage students to have a little bit of experience just to ease their transition into the program. So for example, the software engineering program, it is all code all the time. So I like to tell students you might want to dip your toe into little HTML, CSS. For our data science program, while, again, there are no hard requirements, I also recommend students to dive into math if they're not super comfortable with it. So statistics, calculus, cybersecurity engineering, you should have a little bit of a general IT knowledge base. So you should know about networks and systems and the hardware side of things, really. Product design is the only one that's a little bit more open. I like to refer to it as a little bit more tech adjacent than the programs that we offer. So that one has a little bit more of a beginner friendly component, but that's not to say that our other programs are not beginner friendly. Did you say there aren't? No, I did not say that. So there are most definitely in-person courses in New York. We actually have our next available start date is April 25th, but that's specific to our software engineering program. But if you are interested in any of our other programs, you can find the dates that will have those in person. Our product design is set for the June 6th start date in person. And I'm not quite sure about the cybersecurity engineering, but for data science, if I'm not mistaken, it'll be a May 16th start date. But there will be more concise information on that on the website. Does part-time have the option for group projects? So I mentioned this a little bit earlier on in the discussion. So with the part-time, it's asynchronous, which means you're moving at your own pace and setting your own schedule. But if you are interested in engaging with other students, you can most definitely talk with your instructor about that. They can help facilitate things like group study sessions, office hours, and sometimes projects that you can do with other part-time students. Where can I find the job outcomes report? Yes, so the job outcomes report is going to be on our website. If you're on the landing page now, there's a drop-down menu for resources. And then I want to say it's either the first or second option there, it just says job reports. What are the daily hours usually for full-time? So for all of our programs, it's Monday through Friday, 9 to 6. For the full-time, with the exception of our product design, our full-time remote program is Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time. Caveat to that, it will vary depending on your time zone. If you are in our remote full-time programs, you'll either be studying with us from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern time, or 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Central time, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Mountain time, or 8 to 5 Pacific time. And yes, the product design would be the only exception to that. It would be 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time schedule. Any idea what fraction of students have a bachelor's degree before entering? I literally just looked at the chart, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I really want to say it's either 30 or 40%, but I know there's a super concise pie chart in the job reports landing page on our website. What would you say is the hardest, most difficult aspect of joining Flatiron School for students who do not have any background in coding or tech? I would say probably momentum. Imposter syndrome is so huge, and I feel like, you will never doubt yourself more than when you're learning something new for the first time, especially if you're sort of like your biggest critic. So whenever you get stuck, you might find that might be a little bit discouraging just because of that imposter syndrome. And then that can actively disrupt, I don't know why I couldn't say that word, the momentum that you have. And keeping pace is the most important thing. Falling behind can make it very difficult to catch up. So I would say that's probably the hardest part. But what I can say that will most likely help you through that is we have a really awesome community team. I know I said that earlier as well, but our community team is amazing at what they do, and they're very conscious of the fact that this is also an emotional journey. So they host events like Meditation Monday, yoga, game nights, movie nights, new student mixers. So they always have something going on that's there to help you blow some steam, connect with other students that might be feeling exactly the same way. And so I would say the best way to really get over those feelings is by turning to your community, and really accepting that support and understanding that you are not the only person that's feeling that way, and that will subside. What is awarded upon completion of the program, certificate, license, degree, portfolio, and how does this translate from one job to another? So you will get a certificate of completion for every program or any of our programs that you complete. And then secondly, yes, you will leave us with a portfolio for all of the programs, or I should say, for data science and software engineering, you'll work on 5 projects throughout the course of the program. And ultimately, you'll be able to pick which of those projects, you'd like to feature on your portfolio. For the product design, you'll work on 6 small scale projects, 3 large scale projects. And again, you'll be able to pick and choose which of those speak to who you are as a designer and toss those on your portfolio. And then lastly, for our cybersecurity engineering program, you'll work on a capstone project. Like I said, and that capstone project will be what you'll be able to show potential future employers that'll speak to who you are as a cybersecurity engineer. How many students are in each cohort, or what's the student instructor ratio? We like to keep our student to instructor ratio 25 students per 1 instructor. Sometimes there may be a little bit more students in there. Sometimes there may be a little bit less, but 25 to 1 is our golden number over here. I am a mechanical engineer and want to change careers into product design. How will you help me to change my resume from mechanical to product design without any experience in product design besides the program itself? Great question. Definitely the program. So with the program, you'll literally learn everything that is encompassed within product design. So I like to say product design is very similar to thinking about code as full stack engineering. With product design, you'll dive into UX, UI. We also very heavily focus on accessibility and making sure that the prototypes that you're creating keep in mind all of the different folks that will be using that product. And you will also get exposure to light exposure, I should say, to some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to help with the front end UI designs that you're creating, but also to foster those relationships and conversations that you'll have with actual software engineers who will code your prototype. Besides that, the program does have 2 studio phases where you'll be able to knock out a ton of projects. You'll work on 6 small scale projects, like I mentioned, 3 large scale projects. And ultimately those projects will comprise a portfolio that you'll be able to show employers that will speak to who you are as a product designer and what interests you within that industry. And your career coach will help with that transition. So conducting mock interviews with you, updating your resume, making sure your portfolio is in tip-top shape, and also helping you with that job search. For those with no experience at all, what should we focus on in the written application, product design? And do you have a ratio of students who were initially new to the field? Yes, so really love all the product design questions, y'all. So for product design, I would definitely say focus on soft skills. So product design is very focused on problem solving, but also creativity. Do you have a creative hobby? Are you a painter? Are you an artist? Did you draw as a kid? Do you find yourself on websites thinking about what the engineer could have done differently to make it more aesthetically pleasing? Those are all things that product designers think about in the day-to-day. Are you someone that has had a background in customer service? Empathy is a very, very big part of the UX UI realm. Are you someone that comes from a psychology or sociology or social science background? There is a ton of research that is in product design as well. So any soft skill that you might think that you possess that I just listed, or anything that you feel like really helps you stand apart from the applicants that we normally get, I would recommend tossing into that. Really interested in the product design course. I noticed there is another info session next week for intro to product design. Would that have information different from what was presented today, since it is product design focused? Yes. If you are interested in product design and have RSVP'd for our intro to product design course or info session, I'm sorry, you will also be seeing me there. It does vary from what was presented here. We'll actually have the product design director will be joining. I'll be there as the admissions person. We'll have a current instructor, a current student, and an alumni, all part of the panel. We'll dive a little bit deeper into the curriculum, the admissions process, all of the more sort of specific details. I know you mentioned before, but what level of knowledge is recommended prior to starting cybersecurity? What I would recommend, obviously, like I said, it is not a requirement by any means for you to have any prior knowledge, but if you want to go into the program feeling as prepared as possible, for cybersecurity, it's super important that you have hardware knowledge. So knowledge on On networks, have you ever set up your own home network? Are you, familiar with common cybersecurity terms like phishing and malware? Have you coded in Python just yet? There is Python in that program. So if you haven't coded before, I would definitely recommend you dip your toes in the coding water, just so you can feel a little bit more comfortable with that. But I would say those are the main three things to really focus on. How long does the career counseling last? Your career coach will be there for you for 6 months post completion of the program. But just so you're aware, and there is more information on that on our job outcomes report, but the first 50% of folks actually found jobs within 2 months. So it does tend to be a pretty speedy process for some folks. So I would definitely just keep that in the back of your mind, but your career coach will be there for you for those first 6 months. How can we register for product design info session? Yes, you can find that on our website. Pretty sure also in the resources drop-down menu, you'll see events. And then if you scroll down, the events are broken down by program. And then in the product design, you'll see that the next available one is just the info session that we'll be hosting next Wednesday. That info session will be a little bit earlier, so just keep that in mind. It's from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern time, 3 to 6 Pacific time, and all the time zones in between. Could you repeat data science background too, please? Yes. So data science also dives into code. So if you want to feel as prepared as possible, dip your toes into Python. That's the language that we cover in our data science curriculum. If you are someone that doesn't come from a math background, I would also recommend that you brush up on statistics and also calculus, just so you can feel as prepared as possible. So that was the last question I have in my box. Did anybody have any additional questions before I let you all have a very happy Wednesday night? Thank you, Carlin, for posting in the info session link for the product design. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even see some of these questions hanging out in here. First day of data science, please, and what time should I start enrollment process? Our next available data science flex program is April 25th, and you want to make sure, if you want to get started on that date, to get started as soon as possible with the enrollment process. We do close out our enrollment or our enrollment deadlines, I should say, are 4 weeks prior to any start date. So typically, rule of thumb, you want to apply about 2 months, give or take, before whatever month you want to go ahead and get started. All right, I think that was the last one. Thank all of you for being here. These are some next steps. If you want some of these links, if you want to schedule a chat, that is a link where you can find all of our admissions counselors' availability. If you want to apply, you can do that at flatironschool.com/start. There you'll be able to pick what program you want to go ahead and get started on. And like I mentioned, our events calendar. But again, thank you for spending Wednesday night with me. I hope you all have great evenings. Like I said, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I look forward to maybe seeing some of you guys or some of you all in future interviews and maybe future emails. But we'll talk soon. And yeah.